Hi everyone, and welcome to the guide on operator stats and gear stats. So in this video I'm going to basically explain how every stat that your operator can have works, because I know that when you're new to this game it can get very overwhelming, right? You look at all this gear, it has like weird stats that you don't know what they're even for, right? Like strength, will, what does that even mean? Intellect, agility, right? You don't know what's going on. Weapons also have that, and then you kind of just don't know what to do with that. You don't know how to build your character. You don't really know what's going on. So I'm here to explain what every stat does. I'm also briefly going to try and explain how some stats are calculated, although it is a bit complicated. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to do here. So we're gonna start with just the character stats that are listed here. Then I'm going to explain some more stats in the gear section, but let's focus on this first. So we have our attributes. Attributes are these 4 values here. They are unique for every operator, and they obviously can also be increased. So as you can see, my Levitane's intellect is massively increased. And baseline, it is not this high. And as you can see, she also has a main attribute and a secondary attribute, and every operator has those for 2 of these attributes. Obviously, it's different for every operator. So for example, here we have intellect and strength, but Wolfguard here has strength as the main attribute and agility as a secondary attribute. All right. So what do they do? First I'm going to explain what they do baseline, and then I'm going to explain the main and secondary thing. So strength increases your bonus HP, right? It gives you bonus HP. Every point of strength gives you 5 HP. Very simple. Agility gives you physical resistance. In a bit of a complicated way. I'm going to explain what physical resistance does later, although you probably have a gist of what it does. But basically, how it's calculated is the game has a value of 100. And from that 100, it subtracts another 100 that is divided by 1 plus a 10th of percent for each point of agility. So if I have 157 agility on Levitane, that means that 100 is gonna get divided by 1.157, and that's gonna give, rounded up, 86. So when you subtract it from that 100, it's gonna be 14. So that's how you get this number. Intellect gives you arts resistance, and it works exactly the same as agility. It's calculated the same way. Will, on the other hand, just gives you treatment received bonus, and it gives, as you can see, for every point it gives a 10th of percent. So if I have 187, I have 18.6% treatment received bonus from it. Okay, so what about the main attribute and the secondary attribute thing? So as you can see, this is the operator's main attribute, so it also gives a 310% attack increase. So in other words, when you have main attribute, every point of this attribute is gonna give 0.5% of attack increase. And this attack increase actually applies at the end of the attack damage calculation, which is really important. I'm going to explain it a bit later. And the secondary attribute also has the same effect, except instead of 0.5% for every point, it gives a 1/5 of percent, so 0.2% of attack percent increase for every point. So yeah, that's all that the attributes do. Now let's move to the stats here. So HP, I think you probably know what HP is, health points. If it drops to 0, your operator dies. So if you have a lot of it, that's pretty good, because they can survive more. Attack is a bit more nuanced, so let me explain. So first of all, attack is mostly just, you know, the stat that contributes to the damage that your moves will deal. So for example, if you have a battle skill that has a motion value of 150%, it's gonna deal 150% of this, of your total attack. Now obviously it's gonna calculate other things like the opponent's defense, resistances and stuff like that, but the entering value, right, is gonna be this times 150%. In case of a battle skill with motion value of 150%, obviously. So that's what attack is responsible for. Now you can see a lot of different numbers here, and what do they mean? So this number here is very important. This number here is also really important. And then this number here is also really important. So let's start with this base attack. As you can see, it's 828. Now, where does that come from? It comes from base operator attack. So basically, the attack that the operator has without any sort of increases. No weapon, no gear, no buffs, anything like that. Just very raw attack as an operator. So for Levitain, it's 318. It's usually around this value for 6 stars, but it differs by a few, usually. And then a weapon attack. So weapon attack right now is 510, because that's what it is. Here, base attack of the Forgeborn Escape is 510. And basically, the game just sums them up, and that gives the base attack. So why is base attack so important? That's because of the attack bonus, or to be more exact, the percentage bonus. So percentage bonus only takes into account this value here. Okay? This base attack is all that the percentage bonus is going to increase. As you can see, it gives a percentage boost to base attack. So the current percentage is 34%, and because of that, it gives 281, because 34% of 828 is 281. It only takes that, and when you sum those up, you get the basic total of 1109. Now after that, we get the attribute bonuses, which increase the attack by a lot compared to the other sources, but because they take the basic total as the base for this, you want the basic total to be as high as possible. You can't just ignore the percentage bonus because the attribute bonus gives you so much, right? This needs to be as high as possible because you multiply it. So attribute bonus, obviously, as you can see, comes from the main attribute and the secondary attribute. As you can see, there's a lot more coming from the main attribute, and not only because it's just a higher stat here in this case, but also because main attribute gives you more. Remember that main attribute is always, on damage dealers at least, it's more important than the secondary attribute. I'm saying on damage dealers because quite a few characters actually have abilities that scale directly with their secondary attribute. For example, Ardelia. Ardelia's secondary attribute is will, and her main attribute is intellect, and her healing on abilities scales with will and not intellect. Only her damage scales with intellect. So you want to build quite a bit of will on her. But anyway, that's how attack works. Next up we have defense. So defense gives you final damage reduction, which basically means that it is the final thing that reduces damage incoming and like taken by your character. So after all the other resistances are applied, this is the final calculation that the game does to see how much damage you will take. This also means that it will reduce the ether damage, which no other resistances that are available freely in the game do. So where does this number come from? 59.5% from 147. So it's basically calculated like this. You have 100, and then you divide it by 100 plus the value of defense. So in this case, 147. So 100 divided by 247 is something around 0.4. It's not exactly that, but it's close to that. And that is the damage multiplier that the incoming damage will have. In other words, it's gonna get reduced by 59.5%. So if you were to take 100 damage, you will instead take 40 damage. Yes, so otherwise, as you can see, base defense is 140 because you get it from gear. All yellow tier gear, when you have all of it, will give you 140, right? So if you have the full set of armor, gloves, and 2 kits, it will give you 140. I have no idea where this 7 comes from, actually. I would have to look around all my characters and current effects, but basically all your characters are generally gonna have 140 defense. Alright, next up we have critical rate and critical damage. These two are tied, and they work pretty similarly to games like Genshin, so if you're familiar with that, it'll be easier to understand. So critical rate is, just rate of how often you crit. So every source of damage that your character has can crit, except for damage over time. Those can't. So if I have 5%, there's a 5% chance for every attack of mine to crit. Now what does that mean that it crits? It means that this value here, critical damage, will get added on the top to the damage that was going to be dealt with that attack. So if my basic attack deals 100 damage baseline and I happen to crit, it will deal 150 damage because the critical damage will get added. So 50% of 100 is 50. So 100 plus 50, 150. Simple, right? So critical damage is actually quite rare in this game. There are not many ways to increase it. And because of that, it's not really worth building on characters that don't have any sort of crit-based abilities in their kit. For example, Yvonne, who has critical damage increase in her kit. So on her, you want to build critical rate, but on most characters, you don't. Alright, arts intensity. So this, once again, I'm going to compare it to a Genshin stat. This is like Elemental Mastery, except the values are quite a bit different than there. So the way this works is, as you can see, it has a value of 30. And when you click here, you can see it nicely all here. So this gets basically turned into percents. And it's meant to increase the damage from your reactions, from your bursts, and from physical statuses. So as you can see here, crush, combustion, solidification, and shatter, as well as art bursts, deal 100% of that converted into percent more. So if you have 30, it's gonna deal 30% more damage. So these reactions, the only effect that they get is just the damage increase because, well, they mostly just deal damage except for solidification here, but it's not increasing the length of solidification because that will be pretty broken. As for other reactions, as you can see here, it also increases the damage. It does that for every reaction, but it also increases some other effects. So for these, the basically amping reactions, right? So breach, which increases physical damage taken, electrification, which increases arts damage taken, and corrosion, which decreases resistances of the enemies. Those effects are increased by 60% of this value in percent. So 60% of 30 is 18%. Sorry, I bumped my mic. And then we have lift and knockdown, which deal a lot of stagger damage, in case you didn't know. And because of that, they have the special effect that 50% of this value converted into percents is added to that stagger. So lift and knockdown, in this case, deal 15% more stagger. So yeah, that's what arts intensity is for. So if you are playing a team built around elemental reactions, right? Arts reactions, you want arts intensity. All right, next up we have physical resistance and all the other resistances. So this is pretty simple. Every number here, right, like every number of this just gives you 1% damage reduction with the maximum of 90. So if I have 14 physical resistance on Leviathan, that means she has 14% resistance to physical damage. So every physical damage she takes is gonna be decreased by 14% first, and then it's gonna be decreased by 59.5% because of the defense, right? So first this one is calculated and then this one. And for all the arts damage sources, it works the same way, right? So 38, so it's gonna get decreased by 38% and then by 59.5. Ether resistance, as I said, it works exactly the same, but you can't actually build it in any way right now, so yeah. Okay, treatment bonus. Treatment bonus is basically just the increase of healing that your character does. So this is mainly important on characters that heal other characters, so supports and defenders. So for example, if your Ardelia is going to heal for 100 and she has 10% treatment bonus, she's gonna heal for 110 instead. Treatment received bonus is how much the healing is gonna get increased when you receive it on this operator. So this one is when you heal with this operator. So the source of healing is this operator, and this is when this operator is the target of healing. So if Leviathan here was going to be healed by 100, she's gonna get healed by 119 instead. All right, next up we have combo skill cooldown reduction. This one is pretty self-explanatory. This percent is just how much it decreases the cooldown of combo skill. So for example, Leviathan on every rank of her combo skill except for rank 12 has a 10-second cooldown on her combo skill. So if I had 20% here, it would be 8 seconds instead. Next up we have ultimate gain efficiency. So this is basically like energy recharge in Genshin Impact. I keep comparing this game to Genshin because, you know, a lot of people are pretty familiar with Genshin. So it might help them understand how those stats work. So this actually works pretty much exactly the same how it works in Genshin. So at 100%, you're just gonna get the base value of energy for your ultimate that you would get normally, right? So if you were to get 30 energy from a skill and you have 100%, you're gonna get exactly that, 30. If you have 150%, then you're gonna get 45 energy instead. So this matters on characters that need to use their ultimate a lot. Well, Leviathan does use her ultimate a lot, but she's a bit of a special case. And there is those things called breakpoints. And breakpoints are important in some teams and rotations. And breakpoints are basically values of gain efficiency at which you will be able to use your ultimate faster in the rotation. So for example, instead of 2 rotations, you will be able to use it in 1 rotation. That is very important in some teams and on some characters. All right, stagger efficiency bonus is just, it increases the base value of stagger that your abilities do by this percent right here. So I have none, so it will not increase. So for example, if I use the final strike of my basic attack chain that deals 18 stagger and I have 0%, it's just gonna deal 18 stagger. But if I had more, it would increase by that percent. Simple. Okay, so these damage bonuses all work exactly the same. They just increase the damage of this particular element by this value. Pretty simple, right? So hit damage bonus and nature damage bonus. Nature damage bonus is not really meant to be here, but the gear Leviathan is wearing right now gives her that, as well as the hit damage bonus, because it gives both. So we really only care about hit damage bonus on her because she only deals hit damage, and because of that, that is a an important stat because it will increase that. And then we have battle skill damage bonus, which just increases the damage of the battle skill by this percent. There's also other damage bonuses that I don't have listed here, like basic attack damage bonus, which just increases damage of basic attacks, and other stuff like this, combo skill damage bonus, ultimate damage bonus, stuff like that. It all works exactly the same as this one. So yeah, now we are going to move to the gear section real quick to show you some additional ones. And those additional ones, let me find them. Yeah, as you can see, the basic attack damage bonus is here. Battle skill, combo skill, ultimate damage, as I said. Okay, so here it is, damage bonus versus staggered. So this just increases the damage by a percent against enemies that are staggered. So enemies that are staggered naturally take more damage. They take 30% more damage, but you can further increase it with this stat. Main attribute. So this one is really strong in some cases. This stat here increases the value of your main attribute by the percent that it has. So let me show you. For example, yeah, we have the Lynx gear pack. I'm pretty sure it's actually the only gear that has it, and it's a really strong gear because of this. So this value here, 20.7%, this applies to the entire value of your main attribute, not just base, but the entire one. So the more you have of your main attribute, the stronger this stat is. So on high investment, so for example, my Leviathan here actually has this this kit equipped, only upgraded, because she is highly invested. I have put a lot of work into her, and because of that, she has a lot of intellect, and due to that, main attribute is giving her a lot of value, because that 20%, or when it's upgraded even more, is gonna do a lot of work. So I can actually show you. So right now I have 620 intellect, and if I de-equip it, mind you, it only gives me flat 27 intellect. Everything else is going to be from main attribute. So when I unequip it, you can see that I now have 461 intellect, which is a lot less. That is a pretty insane increase. So this kit here is really good. Main attribute is a really powerful stat on characters that really want their main attribute and can build a lot of it. Alright. Arts damage, dealt bonus is, well, the same as I explained earlier, the same as cryo and electric. All skill damage dealt bonus just increases the damage of all your skills, so that's pretty good too. Secondary attribute works exactly the same as the main attribute thing, except for secondary attribute. This is mainly used for characters like Ardelia, as I said before, characters that want to build their second attribute quite highly. So yeah, final damage reduction is essentially just more defense. This works exactly the same as defense, and it's also in percentages. So yeah, it's just bonus defense effectively. And this I already explained before. And yeah, that's all of the stats actually. So yeah, I hope this wasn't too overwhelming and that I explained those stats well and you can understand them now. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you found this guide helpful, I would appreciate you leaving a like and subscribing. And yeah, see you next time. Bye!